When you nail down classic stories in the world of anime and manga, there are quite a few names that come up. Since I am who I am, I have to mention Gundam, but there's also Evangelion, Dragon Ball, Getter Robo, Mazinger Z, Monster, Trigun, Hellsing, Battle Angel Alita, Fist of the North Star, Berserk, and the list goes on. But what we're talking about today is a modernization of what might be one of the most, if not the most, iconic manga stories of all time. Devilman. Devilman is, without a doubt, my favorite manga of all time. In fact, now that I think about it, I might hold it in higher regard than any comic books that I own, which is saying something, considering how big of a Spider-Man fan that I am. But yes, this is the only manga that I own where I have the entire omnibus, and in hardcover no less. It's also one of the most influential manga ever created, by easily the most influential manga creator of all time, Go Nagai, the godfather of the medium. What Ozzy Osbourne is to heavy metal, Go Nagai is to manga. This is the same Go Nagai that created Mazinger Z, popularizing the mecha genre. He created Cutie Honey and jump-started the magical girl genre. He created Kekko Kamen as a giant FU to people asking him to censor his own work, and then jump-started the ecchi genre with that, and it doesn't stop there. You wouldn't have Getter Robo without Go Nagai. Ken Ishikawa was one of his assistants, and the guy helped get it off the ground. Same with Tetsuya Yasuda and Kotetsu Jig. Baronson and Tetsuo Hara were influenced by Violence Jack, which created the post-apocalyptic genre, leading to them doing Fist of the North Star. It's even rumored that Violence Jack is also the reason that we have Mad Max, though it's not confirmed. There's a good amount of creators who list Devilman as one of their biggest inspirations, such as Kentaro Miura, creator of Berserk, Hideaki Anno, creator of Evangelion, Gen Urobuchi, the co-creator of Madoka Magica, and then the most obvious one...
A testicle devil appeared and went apeshit on his nutsack, ma'am!
Yep. To be completely honest, Chainsaw Man being inspired by Devilman is probably the most obvious, beyond me just saying that. If you've read Devilman and then you read Chainsaw Man, it's kind of obvious that it's taking a lot of notes from Go Nagai's work, but to Tatsuki Fujimoto's credit, it's incredibly unique regardless. The original Devilman is considered one of the most emotional and visceral stories that you will ever read, never really letting go of the heartbreak and violence, even until the very end. Funnily enough, I've actually never really gone over the full story of Devilman in a saga format or anything. But you know what? I think I will in the future, when I need a break from Gundam stuff. Probably after we get to Char's counterattack. But either way, anyone who has read it understands that you're dealing with pure fucking Kino. Now, a few years ago, a new anime based on Devilman was released called Devilman Crybaby, and since I'm incredibly dissatisfied with the old video I did on it, I wanted to revisit this and discuss what makes it what it is. Plus, it's actually, to be specific, been 7 years since it came out, so I think it's time for something a little more in-depth. So, let's get this started.
Okay, open the door and let's take a swing at the motherfuckers.
So what exactly is Devilman? I wasn't exactly specific earlier. Well, Devilman is a story that follows the character of Akira Fudo. This young man is nicknamed the Fire Hydrant of Inaguma High because, well, he tends to be very emotional as a young man and cries a lot. His main lady is Miki Makimura, who has been Akira's best friend for years and is his love interest in just about any Devilman story that exists. Our third major character is Ryo, another childhood friend of Akira's who basically drags him off to completely rock his world. The early revelation that Ryo drops on Akira is that demons and hell exist. Not only that, but they're finding a way to Earth. So, they need to find a way to fight them. Ryo's theory is that if someone with a pure heart is possessed by a demon, the demon won't control them, but rather the other way around. So, they go to a party called a Sabbath, which in the original manga is basically a drug-fueled rave. Okay, that's redundant. It's a rave. But anyway, once Ryo starts shedding some blood in there, demons come out of the woodwork. Sure enough, Akira is able to merge with a powerful demon called Ammon, and he goes apeshit on the demons of the Sabbath. From there, the entire world goes to shit, with each arc getting bloodier, gorier, and more insane. There's even a point in the manga where Akira breaks the fourth wall before the third act to let you know that as crazy as things have been up to that point, it's about to get a whole lot worse. By the way, this was 20 years before characters like She-Hulk and Deadpool did things like this. Now, I won't spoil the ending, but I will spoil the tone. This is one of those stories that is very melancholy at the end, but at the same time, it sticks with you a lot more than a lot of other stories would. Devilman is meant to be an anti-war story, but the theme feels a little broader than that. What Go Nagai basically does from the start is create a dichotomy. You have your bog-standard human beings, and then you have demons that want to come in and turn them into steak tartare. And look, I can relate. Anytime I see a hostile commenter being a jerk for the sake of it, it suddenly puts me in the mood for some slow-roasted thigh baked in clay. And there was that one time I ate a census taker's liver with fava beans and a nice Chianti. In all seriousness, though, what we start to see as the story goes on is that humanity becomes more and more brutal when they become more aware of the demons. Though Go Nagai meant for us to see an anti-war message, which I do very much believe is there, he delivers it in such a way to basically show the absolute ugliness that humanity is capable of getting up to. The lesson is that when we simply give in to our base instincts and reject the things that make us human, we become like demons ourselves. It's almost a prophetic message, considering the fact that this was a story told in the 1970s and, well, the 20th century is the bloodiest century of all time. As such, the themes of the story are absolutely timeless. The journey that we go on with Akira as he wrestles with what he's become and his desire to do the right thing, while the world just goes mad around him, is one that I very much believe will sit with anyone who reads it until the day that they die. It is a prime example of what the horror genre can be if it desires to go beyond killing teenagers for doing the horizontal tango. In short, it's peak. Now, where Devilman Crybaby comes in is that it's really the first anime to try and adapt the story of Devilman from the manga to the TV screen in full. Now, I've already covered the Devilman OVAs, and one thing I mentioned is that the 3 that we have only covered the first few arcs of the series, and then one version of the series' ending. The original TV series is more of a tokusatsu-flavored show, and has nothing to do with the manga whatsoever. A full adaptation has never really been done. That's where Crybaby comes in. The show is directed by Masaki Yuasa, who, before this, would largely be known for working on Crayon Shin-chan. If you've seen AMV Hell before, you'll recognize the series. Then he went on to work for Madhouse for a bit, and then formed his own animation studio called Science Saru. The script would be put together by our old buddy Ichiro Ukuchiki, co-creator of Code Geass, and the guy who fumbled the Witch from Mercury so hard, you'd think he was trying out for the Chicago Bears.
Boo this man!
Hey, fuck off, I'm from Illinois, I'm allowed to make that joke. The music is composed by Kensuke Ushio, a member of the Japanese rock band Llama. After this, he would go on to do Chainsaw Man, and he's fucking perfect at it. I don't need to go into detail. The score in this show is incredible. Regardless, the team on this one was very acclaimed coming in, but there were some reservations from longtime Devilman fans, myself included. The simplistic art especially seemed kind of weird, along with the sort of trippy and ethereal vibe that didn't quite seem to mesh with Devilman at the time, or at least you'd think it wouldn't. So, with all that said, how did Devilman Crybaby turn out?
You mortals!
I have one phrase after watching this show again after 7 years. I feel pain, I feel sad, and god damn it, it feels wonderful. What Devilman Crybaby ended up being was a modernization. The school punks from the original manga are now hip-hop heads who rap on the docks and end up becoming pretty endearing as the show goes on. The setting is no longer the 1970s, but is the modern day, and has a lot of the same modern-day trappings that you would expect from modern-day Japan. A lot of the themes of the original are kept in place, and the most important story beats are kept around as well. There are things done differently, though. The appearance of some of the more iconic devils are way different. Selene is probably the most notable, considering her confrontation with Akira in this one starts with Akira having sex with her, and she transforms literally while she's having an orgasm. I won't spoil exactly how different Jinmin is, because he's also very different, but just know that it's got similarities to the original, but is a lot more fucked up. There's also new Devilmen as well. with many of them not knowing how to control their powers and just ending up devouring human beings, in some cases in the most tragic ways that you could imagine. However, one of the more notable ones, and a character that has become a new fan favorite for Devilman fans, is Miko Kuroda. She has one of the more sad tales in the story, because she's just a girl looking for acceptance, looking to stand out in the crowd, feeling overshadowed by Miki Makimura, who is her closest friend. Part of her pursuit to stand out leads her into a spot where she ends up being taken advantage of sexually. One of the real-life ironies of her character is she's more known by the memes about this show as just being the chick with the massive honkers, when part of what she's wanting to be is more than just the girl with more curves than the Autobahn. That actually leads me into one thing Yuasa takes time to make a theme of this particular show. Devilman, as I mentioned earlier, is a story that goes over how mankind can turn into monsters, and how our actions can reach different levels of depravity. In the original manga, it's mostly portrayed through violence. In this, it's also portrayed through sexuality. On the surface, I won't lie, the show does come across as pretty horny. The Sabbath in this one is basically a drug-fueled orgy. And there was some sexuality in the original when it came to the Sabbath, topless women and things like that. But this one basically goes almost like softcore porn with it, I won't lie. Once Akira fuses with Ammon, he gets noticeably hornier. And they actually make a point to show you that he's got a massive dick. You actually see his semen on the ceiling after he has a wet dream. And there's some blatant and completely loveless sex scenes that really come across as just kind of disgusting and mortifying when you watch them. They're only going to be turn-ons if you're someone who needs therapy. I have a feeling that's going to be a lot of people, and it does not say good things about modern society. On the flip side, though, there's also uses of nudity to show vulnerability and intimacy, which is something that really is an example of what this show goes out of its way to do. Show the full gamut of what it is to be human. This is largely what I love about this show. You see what it is to be rich, you see what it is to be poor. You see what it is to have a loving family, you see what it is to be alone. You see what it is to be a moral person. And then you see what immorality does to people. There's a juxtaposition of fearful paranoia to bravery, and we see characters rise and then fall. You literally see goodness in the world get snuffed out in a way that rips your fucking heart out. And that's why I said after rewatching this, I feel pain, I feel sad, but it's also a wonderful thing. Art should make you feel things. As an adaptation of the source material, Devilman Crybaby is excellent. Its ethereal feel, trippy feel at times, which admittedly comes along with drug use in the story, and honestly more simple character designs and animation, complement the wild feel of Go Nagai's original art style from the manga. The violence and depravity juxtaposed to the more tender moments are straight out of the original. As a piece of art, this show is phenomenal. It is one of my favorite anime of all time, and honestly, I feel like if you're a horror fan and you haven't watched it, you're depriving yourself of greatness. Now, do I recommend it over the original manga? No. The one flaw of Devilman Crybaby is that it doesn't give you room to breathe, whereas the original manga does. I do feel like this show can almost feel like a panic attack at times, constantly pressing you on your chest and not really letting you breathe. You aren't given time to really let the taste settle on your tongue and comprehend what you're having unless you just stop after each episode to digest and take a break. Given that the original release of this on Netflix dropped the whole show at once, after I was done with it the first time I watched it, I needed a cigar and a glass of whiskey just to come down from it. But at the same time, it's still incredible. If you're someone who has never interacted with Devilman before, I'd recommend watching this as your first experience. It's also a good one if you're a seasoned Devilman fan and you want to introduce the story to people who aren't really readers. They're not the types that pick up a manga and just sit with it for hours on end. It really is one of the best anime I've ever seen, and at this point, I actually need to check out Yuasa's other work. I hear Japan Sinks 2020 is pretty good. Anyway, it goes without saying, I recommend Devilman Crybaby. Go watch it if you haven't already. If you enjoyed the video, please don't forget to do the whole like and subscribe thing. If you want to support the channel, we are less than 25 more members until my editor Shirt Dude and I do a podcast for you guys talking lore all the time. Plus, we now have channel merch. Check out both shirts that are now on the screen and follow the link in the description to pick one up. Or both. And if you want free shipping on both of them, use the code BIGMICAMERCH at checkout. I'm Big Micah C, your favorite vanilla gorilla. I will see you guys next time.